Welcome to another deep dive with us. Today we're going to kind of wade into those messy emotions that always seem to bubble up after a relationship ends.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, so we're going to use excerpts from When the Boogeyman Comes Calling as our guide. And I have to say right off the bat that I really love this book.
Oh, me too.
It's such a unique take, and it's not your typical self-help book, you know?
Right.
It mixes those personal stories with advice, and the whole, like, using the boogeyman to represent those post-breakup anxieties and, you know, fears and stuff, it really resonated with me.
Yeah, it's a great concept.
Have you ever felt like an actual monster of doubts and, like, anxieties just moved into your head after a breakup? Like, it was just living there rent-free.
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly the feeling that the book really captures so well, you know? It's like instead of running away from those fears, you have to, like, confront them head on, and that's where the healing actually starts.
Yeah, and it really dives deep into that whole emotional roller coaster of a breakup, you know?
Yeah.
Doesn't, like, sugarcoat it at all.
No, it doesn't.
Like, it shows just how raw and intense those feelings can be.
Exactly.
It even compares the emotional turmoil to a tornado.
Oh, wow.
There's this one story that really stuck with me. It was Maria's,
Oh, yeah. What happened with Maria?
she goes through just this awful betrayal, and it's like her whole world just gets ripped apart, you know?
Oh, that's so rough.
Yeah, and it just leads to this whirlwind of, like, rage, grief, sorrow, all at the same time. It's just...
Yeah, all those conflicting emotions just swirling around.
Yeah, and Marie's experience, it really highlights just how much a betrayal can, like, totally upend your life.
Definitely.
And the book argues that, like, even though it's painful processing those difficult emotions, it's, like, essential for healing and growth.
It is. You have to go through the storm to reach the calm waters.
There's this one quote from the book that I just, like, it hit me hard.
Oh, what is it?
It says, nothing hurts more than being disappointed by the one person you thought would never hurt you.
Oh, wow.
It's like a punch to the gut.
Yeah, it really is. And the book acknowledges that pain while also emphasizing that, like, there's potential for growth and self-discovery that can come from it, right?
Right.
It's like this intense period of self-reflection that the book actually frames as a trial where you start to just question everything.
Everything you know.
Yeah.
Your choices, your worth. Just like in David's story where he goes through this, like, slow fade breakup that just sends him on this long journey of introspection and self-doubt.
It's so common, though, isn't it, to, like, question yourself after a breakup?
Oh, yeah, it's not fun.
No, it's not.
And while the book encourages you to lean into that whole questioning thing, you know, it also reminds you that emotional pain isn't just in your head.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's physical, too.
I never really thought about it that way.
I knew heartbreak felt awful, but I didn't realize there was an actual physiological side to it.
Well, there is. The book talks about how all this stuff happens, like stress hormones get released, and, you know, there are actual physical sensations tied to heartbreak. And there's even this thing called broken heart syndrome.
What?
Yeah, it's a real medical condition.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder to, like, treat ourselves with a lot of kindness and patience while we're going through it.
Definitely.
Our bodies and minds need time to recover, you know?
Yeah, just like with any other injury, really.
Exactly. And speaking of recovery, you know, the book offers some pretty interesting ideas about how to manage those big, sometimes overwhelming emotions.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes it does feel like those emotions are just totally in control.
Yeah, like a runaway train.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, can we do about that?
Well, instead of, like, suppressing those emotions, you know,
Right.
the book suggests learning how to manage them.
Okay.
It uses this analogy of, like, wild horses.
Wild horses, huh?
Yeah, to describe these feelings.
Okay, interesting. But how do you tame wild horses?
Well, the book suggests a couple of strategies like grounding techniques and mindfulness practices. Grounding techniques are all about bringing you back to the present moment.
It's okay.
When those emotions just feel completely overwhelming.
Okay.
One example is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
So you use your senses to just, like, reconnect with your surroundings.
Like hitting the pause button on that runaway train?
Exactly.
I like that. What about mindfulness?
Mindfulness, along with cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, are all about becoming more aware of your thoughts.
Okay.
And, like, challenging those negative stories we tell ourselves after a breakup.
Right, like, I'm not good enough, it's all my fault kind of thoughts.
Exactly.
Ugh.
And the book mentions this tool called thought records.
Okay.
Basically, you write down your thoughts and then analyze them objectively.
So you become like a detective of your own mind.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that.
Trying to figure out those patterns and beliefs that are driving those wild horse emotions.
Right.
It can be really helpful.
I bet.
But the book doesn't stop there. It also explores Stoicism as a philosophy for building resilience during heartbreak.
Stoicism. Isn't that a bit, well, ancient? How can a philosophy from, like, ancient Greece help with a modern-day breakup?
That's a great question, and it's something the book addresses directly.
Okay.
What's interesting about Stoicism is that it emphasizes accepting what you can't control
Okay.
and focusing on what you can.
Okay.
It's not about ignoring your emotions,
Gotcha.
but choosing how you respond to them.
Okay. That makes sense. But isn't it a little, like, detached? How can someone embrace amor fati, which is about loving your fate when they're feeling, intense grief and anger?
You're right to point that out. It's
Yeah.
not about denying your feelings.
Okay.
The book shares the story of Noah, who was left by his partner for someone else.
Oof.
Yeah, and he actually used Stoic principles to rebuild his life
Wow.
by creating routines, practicing mindfulness, and accepting that he couldn't control other people's actions, but he could control his own responses.
So it's about finding that inner strength.
It's exactly.
Even in the midst of heartbreak,
Mm-hmm.
we still have the power to choose our mindset and, like, build resilience.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how Stoicism could be useful.
It can be, and the book also highlights memento mori, which is another Stoic concept.
Memento mori, isn't that about remembering death?
It is.
Seems a bit dark for a book about healing from heartbreak.
It might sound morbid, but it's actually about using the awareness of our mortality to motivate us to live fully in the present moment
Okay.
and not dwell on things we can't control.
So appreciating what we have and not wasting time on negativity.
Exactly.
Okay.
And speaking of facing things head on, the book takes this really interesting approach where it encourages you to actually talk to your fears,
Oh,
to have a conversation with the boogeyman, so to speak.
now that's something I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit unconventional.
It is, but the book presents it as a symbolic way to confront your anxieties head on,
Okay.
understand where they come from, and ultimately learn how to manage them.
I can see how that could be powerful, but how do you actually have a conversation with something as abstract as fear?
Well, the book features this really compelling dialogue between a woman named Lauren and her boogeyman.
Mm-hmm.
She literally sits down and talks to her anxieties,
Wow.
asking them questions, challenging them directly.
So she's treating her fear like a separate entity that she can reason with.
In a way, yes, and through that conversation,
Okay.
she begins to reclaim her power and realize that she's stronger than her fears.
Wow.
It's a great illustration of how facing your fears instead of running from them can lead to some serious personal growth.
It's like taking all that negative energy and turning it into something positive.
Exactly.
Right.
And the book doesn't just leave you with the theory. It provides practical tips for how to have these conversations with your own fears, your own personal boogeyman.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. I'm all ears.
Well, the first step is to approach the conversation with self-compassion. The book stresses that your boogeyman is a part of you that needs reassurance, not punishment.
It's not about silencing that voice, but understanding it, figuring out what it's trying to protect you from.
Right. And the next step is to ask direct questions
Okay.
to try to uncover the root of those fears.
Okay, like what are you really afraid of?
Exactly.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, shining a light on the darkness, exposing those fears to logic and reason.
I like it.
And the final step the book suggests is to reframe those negative thoughts
Okay.
with positive affirmations and realistic perspectives.
So instead of focusing on what you've lost,
Yeah.
you shift your focus to what you can gain from the experience.
That's the idea.
Okay.
You know, one of the most powerful metaphors the book uses is kintsugi.
Kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold. That's the one.
I love that metaphor.
It highlights the cracks and imperfections instead of hiding them.
Yeah.
How do you think that relates to healing from a breakup?
Well, I think it's a beautiful metaphor for resilience. Kintsugi sees those broken pieces, the imperfections, as part of the object's history,
Yeah.
part of what makes it beautiful and unique. And just like those repaired pieces,
Right.
we don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Our experiences, even the painful ones,
Yeah.
shape us and make us who we are.
Exactly.
So it's about embracing those scars and flaws because they're part of our story and even a source of strength.
Exactly. And the book shares this really heartwarming story about Maya and Lucas, two people who've both gone through their own heartbreaks.
Okay.
They meet totally by chance at Lake Como.
Ooh, sounds romantic already.
It is, and their connection is built on this shared understanding of loss and resilience.
It's like a reminder that even after heartbreak, love and connection are still possible.
Absolutely. And it highlights the power of serendipity, those unexpected encounters that can change the course of your life.
But you have to be open to those possibilities.
I do.
You can't just sit at home and wait for love to find you.
Exactly. You have to be willing to take risks and believe that love is still out there.
So take a chance. Put yourself out there, and don't be afraid to open your heart again.
That's what the book suggests.
One thing that strikes me about When the Boogeyman Comes Calling is that it doesn't just offer advice. It acknowledges how difficult this process is.
You're right. And it reminds us that it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
To feel the pain, the grief, the anger, all of it.
Yeah.
Let yourself feel those emotions. Don't try to suppress them.
Be gentle with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And the book also dives into this idea of decompression.
Yeah.
Creating space for healing and renewal.
So it's like giving yourself permission to grieve and process the loss, but also starting to rebuild your life.
Exactly.
Well, I'm definitely starting to see this boogeyman in a whole new light.
Mm.
What other strategies does the book recommend for dealing with him?
The book offers some really practical tips for decompression, like creating a sanctuary in your home.
I love that idea, like having a dedicated space where you can just feel safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
And surrounded by things that bring you joy.
Exactly.
I could see how that would be really helpful for creating a sense of peace and helping you feel grounded.
It can be incredibly powerful, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Right.
Just a corner of a room, a comfy chair, some soft blankets,
Mm-hmm.
anything that makes you feel good.
I can see myself curling up with a good book and a cup of tea.
There you go.
What else does the book recommend for decompression?
It also suggests doing activities that you genuinely enjoy.
Okay.
Whether it's reading, listening to music, spending time in nature, or pursuing a hobby.
Right. It's about reminding yourself that there's still beauty and joy in life, even after a breakup.
It is. Sometimes it's easy to forget that when you're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the power of physical activity.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever noticed how exercise can boost your mood?
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing how exercise can reduce stress and help you sleep better.
Yeah.
It's like a natural antidote to heartbreak.
It really is. The book also talks about guided relaxation techniques.
Oh,
like deep breathing exercises and progressive muscle relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
These can be really helpful for calming your nervous system and releasing tension.
Those are great suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried some deep breathing exercises before, and they definitely help to slow things down when your mind is racing.
They can be very effective. And of course, mindfulness meditation is a powerful tool for cultivating present moment awareness and acceptance.
Right, learning to observe your thoughts and emotions without judgment.
Exactly, finding that sense of peace amidst the chaos.
Right.
And speaking of mindfulness, the book brings up CBT again,
Okay.
highlighting its role in managing negative thoughts and beliefs.
Right, those automatic negative thoughts that often pop up after a breakup.
Yes, they can be on repeat.
Yeah.
But with CBT, you can learn to become aware of those thoughts, question their validity, and replace them with more positive and realistic perspectives.
It's like rewiring your brain for resilience.
Exactly.
The book also shares this inspiring story about Sarah,
Oh, yeah.
who creates a sanctuary in her home and in nature as part of her healing process.
Yes. Sarah reclaims her space, surrounds herself with things that bring her joy,
Yeah.
and finds solace in the beauty of the natural world. She even takes up gardening.
I love that.
Yeah.
Sarah's story is a great example of how we can actively create environments that support our healing and growth.
It is.
It's about taking control of your surroundings and using them to nurture your well-being.
It is. And it reminds us that healing isn't just about what's going on internally.
Right.
It's also about your external environment.
Makes sense, but what about those deeper fears?
Yeah.
Those that might be harder to address by just changing our environment.
Mm-hmm.
The book talks about talking to our fears, right?
It does. And this is where things get really interesting. It's not about ignoring those fears or pretending they don't exist.
Right.
It's about acknowledging them, understanding them, and then figuring out how to manage them.
Okay, but how do you even begin to talk to something as intangible as fear?
Well, the book emphasizes that those fears often stem from past experiences,
Okay.
from old wounds that haven't fully healed.
So it's about recognizing the patterns and beliefs that are driving those fears.
Exactly.
Like those deep-seated insecurities that we might not even be aware of.
Exactly. And once you've identified them,
Okay.
you can gently challenge them, question their validity, and reframe them with more positive and realistic perspectives.
So it's a process of self-discovery and transformation.
It is.
I like that. Do you have any examples of what that might look like in practice?
The book provides some really practical tips for talking to your own boogeyman. those fears that keep popping up.
Okay.
It suggests starting by simply identifying what you're truly afraid of.
Okay.
What are those worst-case scenarios that keep you up at night?
Name the fear, bring it out into the open.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Then what?
Once you've named it, the book encourages you to ask yourself if those fears are rational.
Okay.
Are they based on facts, or are they just projections of your own insecurities?
So separating reality from fiction.
Exactly. It's easy to let your imagination run wild when you're hurting.
Yeah.
And once you've examined the rationality of your fears, the book suggests exploring their origins.
Okay.
Where do they come from? What past experiences or beliefs might be feeding those fears?
So it's like tracing those fears back to their source, understanding where they come from. It sounds like a form of therapy almost.
It can be very therapeutic. And finally, the book reminds you that you have the power to choose how you respond to those fears.
Right.
You can let them control you, or you can choose to challenge them, reframe them, and move forward.
It's about reclaiming your power and choosing courage over fear.
Exactly.
That reminds me of Lauren, the woman who talked to her boogeyman.
Yes, her story is a powerful illustration of how we can engage with our fears in a constructive way. She literally sits down and has this conversation with her anxieties, challenging them and asking them questions.
It sounds like a powerful exercise.
It is. And as she talks to her boogeyman, she starts to realize that those fears aren't as powerful as she thought they were.
Right. They lose their power.
Exactly. And she starts to reclaim her sense of self-worth and believe in her ability to overcome those challenges. It's a beautiful reminder that we are stronger than our fears.
That's a really empowering message.
Yeah.
But isn't there a risk of getting stuck in the past if you focus too much on where those fears came from?
That's a good point, and the book addresses that directly.
Okay.
It emphasizes that taking back the night, as it calls it, isn't about erasing the past.
So it's not about pretending the hurt never happened.
Not at all. It's about accepting what happened,
Okay.
learning from it, and using it as a catalyst for growth.
It's about acknowledging your pain, but also recognizing your resilience, your ability to bounce back.
Right, remember the kintsugi metaphor we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
The book uses that same concept here. It's about seeing your scars, your imperfections, as part of your story, part of your beauty.
And as a source of strength.
Exactly. It's a reminder that you don't have to be perfect, that your brokenness can actually be a source of strength.
That brings to mind the story of Maya and Lucas, the couple who met at Lake Como. It's such a beautiful reminder that even after heartbreak, you can find love and connection again.
It is, and their story emphasizes the power of serendipity.
Right.
Those chance encounters that can change the course of your life.
But it also highlights that you have to be open to those possibilities, right?
You do.
You can't just sit at home and wait for love to find you.
Exactly. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, take risks, and believe that love is still possible.
So be open to new experiences, step outside your comfort zone, and have faith that good things are still to come.
That's the spirit.
You know, it strikes me that when the Boogeyman Comes Calling offers this really nuanced perspective on heartbreak, it acknowledges the pain and challenges, but also emphasizes the potential for growth and transformation.
It does, and it doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of heartbreak.
Right.
Those moments when you feel completely lost and alone.
Yeah.
But it also offers this incredibly hopeful message.
It reminds you that you're not alone, that everyone goes through this,
Yeah.
and that you have the strength to get through it.
Exactly. And that even though it might not feel like it now, you will heal.
Yeah.
You will grow, and you will find happiness again.
It's about trusting the process even when it's difficult.
It is.
The book's final message is really one of hope and empowerment.
It is. It reminds you that even in the darkest of times, you have the power to choose resilience, to reclaim your life, and to create a future filled with love, joy, and meaning.
It's about recognizing that heartbreak doesn't have to define you.
It can be a catalyst for growth, self-discovery, and ultimately a deeper understanding of yourself and what you truly want in life. And that brings us to the last part of the book where it talks about daylight. That moment when you emerge from the darkness of heartbreak into a brighter future.
Sounds promising. What does that daylight look like? What does it mean to fully step into it?
Well, the book describes it as like finding your way back to yourself, you know?
Okay.
To your passions, to the things that make you feel truly alive.
Right.
It's about rediscovering your joy and embracing the possibilities that are now open to you.
It's like stepping out of the shadows and into the sunshine.
Yeah,
I love that. That sense of renewal and possibility.
it is. And when the boogeyman comes calling, It reminds you that you are strong, that you have the resilience to overcome even the most challenging experiences.
It's not about forgetting what happened,
Yeah.
but about learning from it and moving forward.
Exactly.
So it's a journey, not just a destination.
Exactly. And the lessons you learn along the way can shape you into a stronger, wiser, more compassionate person.
Mm-hmm.
Think back to those stories we discussed. Maria, David, Noah, Sarah Lauren, Maya, and Lucas.
Right. They all faced their own boogeymen, their own unique challenges,
Right.
but they also found their own paths to healing and growth.
They each embrace their own version of daylight,
Exactly.
and their stories really show that there's no one right way to heal from heartbreak. It's a personal journey.
It is. And when the boogeyman comes calling, encourages you to embrace the duality of life,
Okay.
to acknowledge the darkness, but also to always seek the light.
Right.
It's about finding that balance, accepting that things change, and choosing to focus on the good.
It's about remembering that even after the boogeyman comes, calling daylight always returns.
Always.
I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So what does this all mean for you, dear listener?
Yeah.
If you're going through heartbreak right now, what's the most important thing to remember?
Well, first and foremost, know that you're not alone.
Hmm.
Heartbreak is a universal experience. It's okay to feel the pain, the grief, the anger, all of it. Let yourself feel those emotions. Don't try to suppress them.
What?
And remember, you have the power to choose resilience. You have the strength to face your fears, to heal, and to create a brighter future for yourself.
The tools and insights from When the Boogeyman Comes Calling can help guide you on that journey.
And remember, dear listener, you are worthy of love, happiness, and a life filled with meaning.
So keep your heart open, keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in the power of daylight.
That's it for our deep dive into When the Boogeyman Comes Calling.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
We hope this exploration has provided some comfort, insight, and maybe even a little bit of inspiration for your own journey.
And remember, healing takes time. Be patient with yourself, celebrate your small victories, and never give up on finding your own daylight.
Until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and remember, you've got this.